Alright guys, Spirit Smoker here for part 2 of this good, bad, and ugly of pipes and tobaccos. These questions being answered, or at least being discussed. I don't think questions like, how do I cool down my pipe, can be simply answered. I think that there's several answers depending on the person smoking it, depending on what they're smoking, and depending on what they're smoking it out of. In case you didn't see in the first video, I'm smoking some Appalachian Berry from Old Shenandoah. Very wet tobacco. Starting to get a bit of a wet smoke out of this, actually. That tends to be a problem for a lot of people too. They like aromatics, but they get very wet. A very wet smoke. So you tend to get that gurgle, and that's kind of gross. Sometimes it'll even travel up the stem and get in your mouth, and that is just nasty. One thing you can do about that is take a pipe cleaner and just run it down as you're smoking it, and just do it till there's enough pressure and you can feel that pressure, meaning you're getting close to the tobacco, and it'll soak up some of that, and then just pull it out, discard the pipe cleaner. Now for a church warden, I tend to use, this is the one that I just used for this, I tend to use the arts and craft type pipe cleaners. They're much longer. They actually go through the entire stem. And while they're not as rigid, they do tend to be a little bit wider, so you do get more of a, a nice cleaning out of them. So something like that tends to be pretty absorbent. They do a very good job. Obviously your standard pipe cleaner, something like this, will never fit through this. I've actually broken a church warden before that was all wood by trying to force it through with a wire clothes hanger. And I split the entire thing open, and I was not pleased. And the funny thing is that those pipe cleaners are so cheap. I mean, they're cheaper than regular pipe cleaners. You can go down to the arts and crafts store and get 1,000 of them for like $2. They're dirt cheap. So, real quick, we'll discuss non-aromatic tobaccos as well. Again, as I mentioned in the first video, depending on how the tobacco is cut will definitely help determine how well it burns, how long it stays lit, and how hot it burns. Again, if you know, if you've ever built a fire in your fireplace before, it's very, very similar in that you understand that it requires oxygen flowing, that the smoke needs somewhere to go, and that there's different fuel. If you have a smaller piece of a softer wood, typically what'll happen is it may burn relatively hot, but it'll burn very quickly. So something like a ribbon cut tobacco may burn very quickly and very hot. It may require a lot of tamping because it's going to go through it really quickly. You figure that there's less surface area, or there's almost more surface area for it to get through quicker. Whereas something that's bigger, something like a cube cut, it's going to take much longer for an ember to make its way through that. And therefore, it'll probably burn a little bit slower as well, and therefore maybe even a little bit cooler. I tend to, whenever I drive with a tobacco, I tend to try to go with something of a more coarse cut, usually like a rough cut or a chopped or something cubed, or if I have a flake tobacco, I'll usually muddle that up first and then smoke that. Because typically they require less maintenance in the car. Or when I'm mowing the lawn or something like that. Now, it just happens to work out very nicely because in my experience those types of tobaccos with a coarser cut tend to smoke a little bit cooler anyways, that I tend to smoke those in my more, they call them nose warmer pipes. Something very short, stubby, something that's able to be very close to my face. I tend to smoke cooler burning tobaccos in there, which also tend to require less maintenance. So it works out that way. Real quick, I think now's a good time I can show you some of my pipe collection. Excuse me just a moment. I'm just going to move you over here. Now here's just my tabletop. These are my more commonly used pipes. I've got some customs, and I've got my Peterson, a Savinelli, and a Stanwell on the line there. Over here I've got a Moonshine Devil's Ants pipe. I've got a couple Church Wardens over here, and give me a moment. If I open up my drawer, I can show you some of my pipes. Now you can see from this general area here, I have quite a few shorter pipes. Now I tend to really like I said, I like shorter pipes for when I'm driving around. I tend to like shorter pipes when I'm just doing yard work or just even going on walks. My reaction time to be able to turn my head and pay attention to the road like you ought to be is greatly increased by that ability, especially with a shorter pipe. Now, as we go more towards the middle in this area, typically you'll see here more standard sized pipes, things that you would expect to be more standard, something like a 4 or 5 inch stem typically here, something that you know, is really good for smoking just about any time depending on the style of the pipe, and really that's going to make a difference. Something like this cool Viking pipe. Obviously is going to be something that's, excuse me, much more difficult to smoke without having to hold on to it the entire time. However, something more like this little Ants, I think you saw me smoking that in my last video, is much easier to maneuver in your mouth and can be much less cumbersome. Now, over here, I've got a couple of the pipes that really I only ever smoke in my chair. Let's see here. Excuse me. Let me get you guys focused in. You have to excuse me, I'm doing this on my iPhone. It's not a great option, but it's what I have for right now. So as you can see, I've got some of the longer pipes over here, or the heavier pipes. Now, this is not a long pipe, but it is a very heavy one. You can see just from the general size of that, it's like a freaking Coke can. It's a big pipe. So something like that is less conducive to walk around with. So I stick that in with the area that I would smoke in here. Something like another Church Warden. This is a Cobbett from Missouri Meerschaum. They call it a Cobbett because it's after the Hobbit, but it's obviously a corncob pipe. So there's just a quick little look, and again, depending on what you're smoking as well, a curved pipe, something like this, is going to stay in your mouth a lot easier. It fits generally a little bit better in the mouth, and you have the balance tends to be better, and that's another thing that people tend to forget. So I'll put you back up here. Take care of this real quick. So that's just a general idea for you of things that I tend to smoke. Now, when I said in my first video, I think that I'm a bit eclectic in my choices. And that's true. And the reason is, when you smoke a pipe as often as I do, you have a pipe for occasion, you have a pipe for certain times of the day. And again, and when I say occasion, what I mean by that is, am I sitting in my chair? Am I just outside reading? Am I driving? Am I working? What am I doing? And that'll be a lot of the determination as to what I smoke and what I smoke it in. It'll also be a determination sometimes as to what I use to light my pipe. If I'm just enjoying it and not doing a YouTube video or anything like that, not that I don't enjoy my pipes with you guys, but if I'm just sitting here enjoying it, typically I'll use a match to light my pipes. But if I'm talking, I just need to light the pipe quickly without having to think about it all that much, or without having to focus on a match. A Zippo or a Bic, even, if I'm really scrounging around for a lighter, tends to work just fine. I hope that answers some of your questions, guys. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'd love to hear more comments from you guys. Anything that I can do to answer questions, or I'm sure I'll have questions for you guys in the future, and we can discuss them in the comment section. It'd be really helpful. If there's anything else, any other videos that you'd like to see, or anything that you'd like me to talk about as far as tobaccos or pipes, or anything really for that matter, again, just either private message me, leave it in the comments, or we'll talk about it another time. Alright, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you guys watching my videos, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.